Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. And Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Bonachari. Yamuna Tira Bonachari. Yamuna Tira Bonachari. Yamuna Tira Bonachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, just give me a second here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 25th day of February 2026 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Okay, let me repeat that for the recording. On this 25th day of February 2026 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 18, conclusion, the perfection of renunciation, text 26 in the middle of page 677. I have that right? Okay. Mukta Sango, Anahambadi, Driti, Utsaha, Samanvitaha, Siddhi, Asiddhyor, nirvikara, karta, satvika, uchyate, mukta sango nahambadi, drityutsaha samanvitaha, siddhya siddhyor nirvikara, karta satvika uchyate, mukta sango nahambadi, drityutsaha samanvitaha, siddhya siddhyor nirvikara, karta satvika uchyate, mukta sango nahambadi, drityutsaha samanvitaha, siddhya siddhyor nirvikara, karta satvika uchyate, mukta sango nahambadi, drityutsaha samanvitaha, siddhya siddhyor nirvikara, karta satvika uchyate. Bhushan, go ahead. Mukta sango nahambadi, drityutsaha samanvitaha, siddhya siddhyor nirvikara, karta satvika uchyate. Tapas. Mukta sango nahambadi, drityutsaha samanvitaha, siddhya siddhyor nirvikara, karta satvika uchyate. You want to try it, Jeff? Mukta sango nahambadi, drityutsaha samanvitaha, siddhya siddhyor nirvikara, karta satvika uchyate. Mukta sango nahambadi, drityutsaha samanvitaha, siddhya siddhyor nirvikara, karta satvika uchyate. Mukta sango nahambadi, drityutsaha samanvitaha, siddhya siddhyor nirvikara, karta satvika uchyate. Anyone online?
Hare Krishna, Dravida Prabhu, it's Prem Gopal and Vanessa.
Haribol, go Prem.
Mukta sango nahambadi,
Mukta sango nahambadi,
drityutsaha samanvitaha,
drityutsaha samanvitaha,
siddhya siddhyor nirvikara,
siddhyor nirvikara,
karta satvika uchyate.
karta satvika uchyate. Go Vanessa. Go ahead. Mukta sango nahambadi,
drityutsaha samanvitaha,
drityutsaha samanvitaha,
siddhya siddhyor nirvikara,
siddhya siddhyor nirvikara,
karta satvika uchyate.
karta satvika uchyate. What word by words? Mukta sangaha, liberated from all material association. Anahambadi, without false ego. Driti, with determination. Utsaha, and great enthusiasm. Samanvitaha, qualified. Siddhi, in perfection. Asiddhyoho, and failure. Nirvikaraha, without change. Karta, worker. Satvikaha, in the mode of goodness. Uchyate, is said to be. Translation. One who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness is always transcendental to the material modes of nature. He has no expectations for the result of the work entrusted to him, because he is above false ego and pride. Still, he is always enthusiastic till the completion of such work. He does not worry about the distress undertaken. He is always enthusiastic. He does not care for success or failure. He is equal in both distress and happiness. Such a worker is situated in the mode of goodness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So Krishna is now going to describe workers, the Pṛthā, in different modes of nature. Everything is in terms of the different modes of nature. And I couldn't help thinking of a line, I think, from a song from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. If in the course of my duties to you I have to undergo so much suffering, difficulty, that suffering will be the cause of my greatest happiness. In other words, when the purpose, the motive of your activity is pleasing Krishna, you're doing it out of love for Krishna, then if it's more difficult, that gives you a chance to show more love for him, right? In other words, it's just the opposite of material motivation. If you have to do something in order to gain so much money, to buy something, and suddenly there's a big obstacle involved and it's more difficult than you thought, you say, what is this, I thought I was bargaining on ABC and now I got DEF, So material motivation means your pleasure, your comfort is the barometer of whether it's good or bad, right? So there's also another important verse. This is spoken by, I think, Lord Brahma in his prayers in chapter 14 of the 10th Canto, very important. Those who read Krishna book, they'll remember when then Krishna killed this big demon, Aghasura, this big snake. It was about 8 miles long, something. It looked like, and it was quite amazing. And then after that, he came out, he brought his friends back to life. They just walked in and said, well, what if it is a big snake? We can walk in there and Krishna will save us anyway. So they walk in and sure enough they die. I mean, according to the Bible. So Krishna, he went in and saved them and killed the Aghasura. Comes out, then he has a big picnic on the bank, it's all going very nicely. And Brahma, he's just amazed, who is this? He doesn't recognize that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his father, his source, This is just a little boy. So he says, so Brahma is, he's not a demon or anything. So he said, well, let's see, let me test him. So he steals, so the calves wander off. The boys are all enjoying taking lunch and joking with each other, and the calves, they're looking for their own lunch, and so they have to go find it in the forest, So before long, the calves are gone, and the boys, oh my God, we've been entrusted with these calves, what are we going to do? So you just keep taking your breakfast here, your lunch, I'll get the calves. So he knows what's going on. It's omniscient, but it's all planned. So he goes to find the calves. The calves are gone. Can't find the calves. Comes back. The boys are gone. So he says, oh, yeah, this is Brahma. He knows that's Brahma doing it. So miraculously, he expands into an exact duplicate number of calves and boys. And every calf and every boy has his own idiosyncrasies, But he does this especially, he says, how can I return alone? What will the mothers think? What will the cows think? Their calves are gone, the mothers. So this is his supernatural solution, and he expands exactly like boys and calves. So even the mothers can't tell the difference. They are their own idiosyncrasies. Oh, welcome back, Nor can the cows. They say, oh, my calf is safe. So that goes on for a whole year. And Krishna is allowing, because they're all Krishna, although the mothers, they can't tell, they think it's. So they're allowed to fondle and to, love their children, and breastfeed them and everything. And so then after a moment of Brahma's time, now this is a very important point, that, in the higher planets, time is different, the passage of time. And so a moment for Brahma, like maybe half a minute, he felt a little worried. Well, I wonder what's going on down there. How's he doing, When Krishna found out that his calves and boys were gone, he must have been very upset. Maybe he's going to be upset with me. So he went down, and there was Krishna, still playing with the boys and calves a whole year later. For him, it was just a half a minute. So Brahma couldn't figure it out. So he comes down, and he offers his obeisance to Krishna. He realized, oh, this is not some boy, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, my father. So he offers obeisances with his four heads and everything. And then he offers these prayers, which are, what can I say? They're very important, and there are a lot of commentary. A lot of commentary by the acharyas. And in Prabhupada gave wonderful, in the Krishna book, he gave a nice commentary and everything. So in that series of prayers to Krishna, he has this one, which is maybe one of the most important, most quoted. Tatte nukampam susamikshamano bunjana eva nukatam vipakam ridvag vapurbe vidadan namaste jivete yo mukti padesa dayabhak. Bhushan, you know this verse? No? I thought you did. So what it means is, tatte anukampam susamikshamano. When in the course of one's devotional service, if something happens that's a setback, painful, difficult, you weren't expecting it, then one should see that as Krishna's mercy. That, the way she thinks, I'm full of all kinds of sins in my background. I was scheduled to get, tremendous injury, disease, whatever. But instead, I just, I got a cut on my hand. I have to put a Band-Aid on or something like that. So you see every reverse as Krishna's mercy, because he's minimizing it. Could always be worse. And he's allowing me to continue the service. On the other hand, if something very nice happens to you, some fortunate thing, whatever it may be, say, oh, Krishna's so kind. This is Krishna's mercy on me, allowing me to serve him better. You see? So whether it's, because life is full of ups and downs. So the downs, you see, oh, Krishna's minimizing the punishment, and I can continue my service. And the ups, where you get over a disease, you're able to have your health back. So Krishna is so kind, he's allowing me to serve him better. Now, here's the punchline. The last line of the verse says, one who maintains this attitude in his service firmly is assured of going back to Godhead. And continues to serve Krishna with his heart, with his words, with his mind. Offering obeisances. He inherits a place in the spiritual world. This word dayabhak is apparently used, Prabhupada explained, for someone who inherits something. What do you have to do? You're the eldest son, father is very wealthy. What do you have to do to inherit? Just stay alive, Just don't die, and then you'll inherit it. So if you stay alive in Krishna consciousness and maintain this attitude, which is a humble attitude, surrendered attitude, as a measure of it, then you're assured of a place in the spiritual world. So that's what I was thought of here when I read this. Because with the modes of nature, and great determination and enthusiasm, without wavering in success or failure, you see that, maintaining determination, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. So, and Prabhupada, as usual, he turns the purport. Krishna doesn't mention devotion to him here, but in the purport, Prabhupada, the first thing he says is, a person in Krishna consciousness is always transcendental to the material modes of nature. And he gives the devotional turn on it. So, let us go on. Text 27. Ragi karma palaprepsu lubdho hingsatmako shuchihi harsha shokanvita karta rajasak padikirtataha The worker who is attached to work and the fruits of work, desiring to enjoy those fruits, and who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow, is said to be in the mode of passion. Wow, what about the mode of ignorance? Wait, we get one. Purport: a person is too much attached to a certain kind of work or to the result because he has too much attachment for materialism or hearth and home, wife and children. A person is too much attached to a certain kind of work or to the result because he has too much attachment for materialism or hearth and home, wife and children. Such a person has no desire for higher elevation in life. He is simply concerned with making this world as materially comfortable as possible. He is generally very greedy, and he thinks that anything attained by him is permanent and never to be lost. Such a person is envious of others and prepared to do anything wrong for sense gratification. Therefore, such a person is unclean, and he does not care whether his earning is pure or impure. He is very happy if his work is successful, and very much distressed when his work is not successful. Such is the worker in the mode of passion. So, this is like, pretty much the dominant mode of work in the present day. And you can see how, in the course of history, as the material, Kali Yuga progressed, and there are some people who have been successful in manipulating this material energy to such a degree that they have much more than they need. The millionaires and the 10 millionaires and the billionaires. And it's obscene. They couldn't spend the money if they tried to, anyway. So, and you can see, from the point of view of Krishna, you see how absurd it is. It just means that you're setting yourself up for, first of all, I don't even want to think what will happen to such people in order to get that money, this bribe, paying off this politician, and things on the edge or beyond the edge of legality, whatever it is, all simply so that they can amass a huge fortune. They're headed for a very dark place. All the people that had to suffer so that they could, have what they did. You read the fifth canto. It's a very sobering chapter. I think it's one chapter at the end of the canto, all about the hells, different hells. And it's just a sampling of the different kind of hells and punishment after death. So it's a kind of a disease, just like I think we were talking about gambling. Gambling was also a very big addiction. And you can see how corrupt it is. I mean, when I grew up, the state understood that gambling is not good for people. And so it was illegal, except in Las Vegas, of course. You can go to Las Vegas. Then they opened Atlantic City for the East Coast, but it was restricted. Then finally, the legislatures, in their wisdom, they figured, well, look, people are going to gamble anyway. So why don't we, get it cut? So they had all these legal. Now suddenly it was legal to open up these places, and the lottery, famously the state lottery, and they have signs: play the California State Lottery. Well, it just means that mass number of people are going to enter into that mode. Okay, wow, it's about $10 million I can get. I just have to invest $1.50, and get the car. And millions of people all over the state and all over the country in different state lotteries. I don't think they have a national lottery yet, although maybe they do. Are chipping away at their limited funds with the great hope. Okay, I picked and they got the ticket. And they watch the drawing or whatever they do. Oh, I was just one number off. I've almost got it now. So. And it's so antithetical to the mood of devotional service, because it's completely self-centered. It's based on trying to cash in on material energy. Now, admittedly, some of these people probably really need the money, and they'll use it to pay the rent and everything like that. But it's that's why gambling is one of the four regulative principles. Not gambling is for one, because it really it cements yourself into the modes of nature and into the bodily concept of life. You know, I'm no, you know, and they actually have done studies, believe it or not. I saw this many years ago. People who actually win the lottery, and you know, very, very few people win, you know, $100 million. Maybe they win a couple of $1 million or 10 million at most, you know. But that's a lot, you know. So suddenly they find all kinds of cousins and you know, far relations coming out of the woodwork. You know, hey, can you give me a loan? I know you have $10 million. You know, come on. You know, and so that instead of just being a simple worker on the production line, you know, so the people who win end up being more miserable than the people who just play. So anyway, that's what Krishna is describing here. Ragi, very much attached, karma pala, to the fruits of the activity. This is like the first lesson you find in the Ishopanishad. Remember the Ishopanishad? The very first, they don't call it a text, mantras. Mantra 1, not the invocation, but the mantra. Ishabhashamidam sabvam yatkinchitjagatajagab tena taktena bunjina ma gridhakasya sviddanam. Everything is owned and controlled by the Lord. He's the ultimate creator, or the employer, if you will, of the demigods who created, you know. So we have a right to our quota, but we have to live simply. If we have more than that, then we're, you know, going to be punished. So that you know, Prabhupada's famous phrase, simple living and high thinking. When he had a chance to establish the farms, first one was New Vrindavan, Gitanagri, and other farms, and he wanted there to be an ideal situation there, where there would be like Varnashram, of course, cow protection, you know, living on the simple rural life, worshipping the deity. The Gitanagri famously had a Radha Damodar, beautiful deities, you know, who went traveling on the buses. It was this whole thing with the bus travel. But Prabhupada wanted to give an example of how one can be happy living a simple life, you know, depending on the land and the cows and on Krishna, of course, you know. And there were, you know, there was you know, good manifestation of that, but then there were also some problems developed. And part of the problems that developed is simply the fact of the outer world seeping in, you know. I mean, it's fine, you know, you could have your food and you live simply, you know, but, you know, what about the cell phones? What about all of this, you know? It's hard, these kids growing up, you know, and they learn about these things, so it's difficult to do it within the environment of a modern materialistic society. But that's the whole idea, that if you're really serious about Krishna consciousness and you're chanting nicely and serving nicely and worshiping the deity, you're getting so much satisfaction from that, from the activities of devotional service. Krishna's good. He's, you know, the philosophy is simple, but you know, you can experience how true it is that Krishna is in the heart, in everyone's heart. He's there as the super soul. He's seeing what we're doing. He knows what we're thinking, right? And if suddenly he realizes, he sees that, oh, this person out of millions and billions of others is actually serving me, trying to think of me and following me, then he becomes pleased. And Krishna being pleased makes you pleased. That's the whole idea. We see a reflection of that most purely in a mother's love for the child. Child doesn't know anything, you know, it's completely dependent. But the mother is giving so much love and sustenance and protection, you know, that the child feels that. And Krishna wanted to experience that, so he appears as a little baby and is being, you know, suckled by Mother Yashoda and protected and so forth. He wanted that rasa. But of course, he also showed his divinity, his godhood. You know, he killed Pṛthā, he killed Trinavarta and all these other demons, even as a little baby. But that's another thing. But the point is that as devotees, when you're involved in service, especially in, you know, preaching, by going out and chanting, we're going to have a nice Harinam on Sunday, and you know, people are responding, then you're feeling bliss by the chanting and also by giving Krishna consciousness. And that's completely antithetical to this self-centered, egoistic, trying to accumulate this and enjoy the senses, you know, like that. So this is very, very telling, this verse. You know, this is the mode of passion, and then we have the mode of passion, which is ragi, right? Very much attached, karma pala, to the fruits of activity. And eventually, and of course, greed. Now we may remember from the end of the 17th chapter, what are those three gates leading to hell? Who could remember? Kama, Krodha, Tata, Lobha. Lust, anger, and greed. Yeah, I love these last 3 or 4 verses of the chapter 17. He's saying here, okay, not 17, we're back in 16, I'm sorry, 16. So, Trivadham Narakasedam. Yeah. So he's describing the hell that he sends the demons to. You know, up to text 20, then 21 he says, Trivadam Narakasedam Dvadam Nashanam Kama Krodha Tata Lobha Tasmani Tatram Jade. There are 3 gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man, every sane person should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. And one who does escape these 3 gates, so it's very graphic. Is that one who is able to escape these 3 gates, none of his activities are based on, lust, strong material desire, which are inevitably accompanied by anger when it's frustrated, and greed. More and more. He's never satisfied. So none of his activities are characterized by that. Tamodvai, to be not escape. A man who escaped the 3 gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. So those acts are, of course, bhakti yoga. And then the last 2 verses are so critical. Now how am I going to know what activities to perform, what not? From the Shastra, or from one who is a personified Shastra. Both. The 3 pillars of authority, or pramana, evidence. How should we act, and how should we not act? This is the same with the demons and the devotees. The demons don't know what to do and what not to do, what to do and what to refrain from doing, and so they end up simply acting according to their whims, and they do things that degrade them and open the gates to hell. That's what Krishna is saying. So then, if we just disregard Shastra and just work on whatever feels good, and then that's text 23. Yak Shastra Vinamutsrija. It gives up the injunctions, vidya, of the Shastra. Vartate kama karata, simply works on the impulse of your lusty desires. Then, what's the destination? Nasa siddhim, does not attain perfection, avapnoti. Nasukam, does not attain happiness. Naparam gatim, does not go to the supreme destination. In other words, he's wasted his human life. So now, the punchline of the whole chapter. Therefore, tasmat shastram pramanam te, karya vavastato, in order to determine what to do and what not to do. What to do and not. Karya and akarya. One has to consult Shastra and recognize that as supreme pramana. This word pramana is so important. Evidence, or an authority that we accept as what to do and what not to do. Not just our own mind. Then, so now, understanding what the Shastra says, then, the punchline. Gyatva Shastra, and understanding the instructions of the Shastra, one should accept those instructions as one's own duty. One should act there as a matter of duty. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. Karta miharasi. That's the last line of the 16th chapter. So, and such a person is, not only actor in the mode of goodness, but even mode of pure goodness. It's transcendental. But you have to come up at least to that point of goodness. All right, if there's any questions or comments, please raise your hand or raise your mic. Now raise your mic.
So this is kind of a finer point, but I'm trying to understand, can a person work in Krishna consciousness and become wealthy as long as that person adheres to what we talked about in 27, they go about it in a sattvic manner? Or is it impossible because they would be so dedicated to Krishna consciousness that it wouldn't even occur to them to seek wealth?
No. It is very possible that well, of course, it's not the greatest example, Ambarish. This devotee Ambarish, who's the grandson, I think, maybe great-grandson of Henry Ford. And he inherited a lot of wealth, But he was a devotee, and instead of just using it to enjoy, first thing he did is bought this beautiful mansion in Detroit, which became the Detroit Temple, that had been owned by one of the Fords, you know. And Prabhupada was there negotiating with the guy who was buying it, so Prabhupada is a skillful businessman himself, you know. And so he got it down to $300,000. It was actually worth a lot more than that. It was built, you know, by this multi-millionaire, so very opulent. And believe it or not, the other person who chipped in was Leka Shravanti, who was the granddaughter of Walter Reuther. That name may not mean anything to you, but he was the main organizer of the unions for the car makers, for the auto workers, you know. So he's famous for that. So it's interesting that the grandson of the boss and the grandson of the union worker. And more than that, then later on, after Prabhupada departed, there were two main samadhis that had to be built. The samadhi means a memorial to the person who you're building it to, you know, great acharya, in this case. One in Mayapur and one in Vrindavan. So, the one in Mayapur, I had a little bit to do with it, involved. In 1977, Prabhupada getting ready to depart, he left on November 14th that year. And of course, he had been ill. He'd been there for some months and everything, and devotees were always wondering what's the state of Prabhupada's health. And he asked as many devotees as possible to come there. And so I'm in LA. I had no money to travel, but everyone knew that order. And so I asked my in charge there, Ramaswamy Swami. He was at the time he was the GBC BBT trustee. So can you please, you know, send me to Vrindavan to be with Prabhupada? So well, you have to finish this book that we all know, The Science of Self-Realization. I worked on that book, and what I was doing was writing the captions for the illustrations. Now, the captions wasn't just 2 or 3 lines at the bottom of a picture. It was a whole page facing the illustration. So I had to pull it, you know, so it's a lot of work. Anyway, so that was delayed. Finally, I and my co-worker, Mandaleshwar Prabhu, who edited the whole Prabhupada Lilamrita, he was a very good editor, we went together on a flight. We left maybe on the 12th or the 11th of November. We didn't, you know, when Prabhupada disappeared, we knew he was ill. We went by the eastern route. So we went from LA to New York. From there, we were flying to Heathrow Airport. But on the middle of the flight to Heathrow, we got this news. I don't know, I don't remember getting it. It must have been pretty shocking. There's been a bomb scare on the plane. So great. So now we're, you know, wondering if it's going to explode in the air. So instead of landing in Heathrow, they landed in Shannon Airport or something in Ireland, because they didn't want to explode in Heathrow. They'd rather explode in. Anyway, so we all got off the plane. They put us up in a hotel, and they checked that plane, every inch of the plane. There was no bomb. It was just some prank, you know. But the delay meant that we missed our connection in Heathrow for Delhi. And then from there, we would have just taken a cab to Vrindavan. So we ended in Bombay, became in Bombay, and probably landed on the 15th by that time, you know. So this devotee, he couldn't even speak. He showed us the telegram he'd gotten from Vrindavan that Prabhupada had disappeared. He left on the day before, on the 14th. So we proceeded because there was a big ceremony and everything, you know. And we came there. It was amazing. They invited everybody in Vrindavan to come for prasad, you know. I'd never seen a wok this big. It was half as wide as this room, practically. You know, they were making hundreds of pounds of khichdi. Anyway, so we went for the ceremony. And then I had been planning to go to Mayapur. And so what happened is that I was part of the crew that took the flowers. You know, Prabhupada, you probably haven't seen these. You maybe have. That they took Prabhupada's form, you know, through the streets. They had all the garlands that he'd been wearing. And those garlands were then sacred when he was interred there. What they do is that the person who's being honored, the great Acharya, Paramahansa, even the sannyasis in ISKCON, they would bury them, you know. Mostly in India, you burn the body. you know. But for great souls like that, the body is considered spiritual and sacred, even the very body. So that's preserved by burying in a certain spot. And then that becomes what we call the samadhi, a place where you go to remember the person. And we would go there and do the Guru Puja. If you ever get to Vrindavan, I don't know if anyone's been there for the morning program, but you find that the samsara prayers, the Gurvashtaka, is chanted at the samadhi, which is a very short walk, like a 2-minute walk from the temple itself. So you go there and you offer there, and there's Prabhupada's murti, and below that murti is actually Prabhupada's form, interred, you know. So I was part of the some of the devotees who went there with the flowers, the place in the spot where the samadhi would be raised, would be built. Now, why did I bring this up? Because Ambarish, and ISKCON was in kind of a flux, you know. I won't get into the whole detail, but we had these new gurus, 11 gurus, and this whole thing. And so the money wasn't being properly raised to focus on building 2 samadhis, one in Vrindavan and one in Mayapur. So anyway, I went to out in the field with the other devotees, and they had dug a hole and replaced the flowers there and so forth. And so what happened was that as time went on, Ambarish said, all right, I'm going to build this samadhi. It was like $10 million or something. I think maybe more, maybe 13. And he paid for the whole thing, and it came up. It was beautiful structure. You know, if you go there, you'll see that. There's, you know, Prabhupada's a beautiful murti of Prabhupada, bigger than this one. And big, you know, ceiling, and there's all of these sculptures I think, actually memorializing his activities, you know, the first Sankirtan in Tompkins Square Park and all these different. It's a very wonderful, you know, contribution. And then, you know, just to complete Ambarish's contribution, he was the main donor, you know, to kick off this TOV pre-project, you know. And he, I don't know how many, you know, $10, $20 million to start that thing off. And what he did, even more than that, having given a good portion of his own fortune, he became very credible to be able to speak to, you know, wealthy Indians and others, you know, to groups, you know, well, you should also contribute. And so he became the most effective fundraiser also for that. So this is the proper use of one's wealth. And Prabhupada, when he started ISKCON in India, you know, there was that whole thing, you know, he would have his men, Giriraj Swami was very good at this, going out and making life members. This is Prabhupada's idea. You were able to approach these people, look, you know, you'll get a whole set of books, you give us 1,100 rupees or something, which was something in those days. Now it was, you know, $10 or something. But it was, and you'll be able to stay for 2 or 3 days in any temple all over the world, you know, and you get a full set of books, which is at that time maybe 30 books. And so a lot of Indian life members, and that's how the temple was maintained. And anyway, so this is the proper use of wealth. You can make a lot of money, and there's a devotee named Gopal Bhatta Prabhu, who was the temple president in LA for a while I was there back in the 70s. And then he did that for a few years. Then he went out and he was like a pioneer in starting these Apple stores. You know, if you ever had Macintosh, you know, computers, and so he started doing that, and he made a lot of money, but he used it for Krishna, and he used not only that, but his business acumen he used also. He advised the GBC on various things. I won't get into detail that were very critical. So he was able to, you know, use that. So it's simply a question of motivation. Yeah, you can make a lot of money. Of course, you have to do it honestly. But then you have to find a way to employ that money in Christian service, and then it's perfect. And then you become, it's very much important devotional service. All right. Where were we? 28? Yes. Ayukta prakrata stabdha shato naish kritiko lasaha Vishadi Dirga Sutricha Karta Tamasa Uchite. Okay, the worker in the mode of ignorance. The worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions of the scripture, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, and who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating, is said to be a worker in the mode of ignorance. Purport. In the scriptural injunctions, we find what sort of work should be performed and what sort of work should not be performed. Those who do not care for those injunctions engage in work not to be done, and such persons are generally materialistic. They work according to the modes of nature, not according to the injunctions of the scripture. Such workers are not very gentle, and generally they are always cunning and expert in insulting others. They are very lazy. Even though they have some duty, they do not do it properly, and they put it aside to be done later on. Therefore, they appear to be morose. They procrastinate. Anything which can be done in an hour, they drag on for years. Such workers are situated in the mode of ignorance. It's almost a comical years. But, this is, I must confess, I went through periods in my life where I was like that, kind of, just like, I got so discouraged. One of the main things, my aspirations in the 60s, this is before I even believed in God, but I was very much involved in the anti-war. There was a big war going on in Vietnam. It went for 10 years. And, and it was just horrific. Literally millions of innocent people were killed by the United States in Southeast Asia. Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. And if you look up the history of that war, it's just horrific. So that was my focus, and after years of demonstrations and working and this and that, what happens? Nixon gets elected, 68. And he just expanded it, and his right-hand man, Kissinger, who was like a big demon, he died. He lived to be 100 years old, believe it or not. He died a couple of years ago. And he was responsible for the idea of, we should bomb Laos and Cambodia because that's where the Vietnamese come down from North Vietnam, so if we bomb their roots, they won't be able to come down. It's just ridiculous. Horrible. So I was just so discouraged because we worked, but still this war went on and so many innocent people were killed. And, I had a job and I was paying taxes and that tax money was going also for the bombs, So I was depressed by that. And I was, I just had no motivation. It was like in this mood. But Krishna blessed me with a very serious case of hepatitis. We put him in the hospital for a month. That was my low point. I'll be honest with you. I was even contemplating suicide. I don't know if I would really have done it, but I had that suicidal, ideation, they call it. That defeat, and with hepatitis, you have no energy. You can't do anything anyway, But my saintly parents, tolerated me, and they put me up after that, and as I was recuperating, and that's when I had the idea to recuperate my health. Why don't I try some of that yoga stuff I've been reading about, And that was my first contact with the East. Anyway, it's a long story. But later on, I saw that Krishna would help me get out of that mode and even today when I lead kirtan, I don't really know how to play the drum obviously, but I can keep a beat. I just thank my father for, as I was a little child, he trained me up in music, and I was able to play in a orchestra, in high school and all this stuff, So all of that came in handy when I joined the Hare Krishnas. I said, oh, the whole thing is dancing and chanting in the street. I can do that, Anyway, so that's the history. But this is all very familiar. Some of us may recognize, some of our own attitudes over the years. You're working hard, you get fired, do I really have a future? It can be really up and down out there. But Krishna consciousness is always upbeat. Even if you're just a really good pot washer, you can become very, very enlivened. I remember there was a bunch of guys who were doing a lot of pots, and then they go out on Harinam. You don't have to be very skilled. You just have to be, but it's a blissful activity. So that's the mode of goodness, pure goodness. Not caring what you do, as long as it's somehow in devotional service. That's the idea. That's connected to Krishna. And then you come before the deity, and the deity seems to be smiling a little more at you. You did some sacrifice. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. That was another thing. I used to play the flute. When I first saw the picture of Krishna, you've probably seen this beautiful painting. Krishna and Balaram, Balaram has his arm. This was Bhadraj's idea, to have Balaram with that arm, and then Prabhupada accepted it for the deities. Wherever there's a Krishna Balaram, that thing with, Balaram's his arm on Krishna. And Krishna is smiling, he's looking right at you. I don't have the picture with me now, but I'll show it one of these times. And he's smiling and he's looking right at you. It was very nicely done. And he has his teeth showing. And you hardly see Krishna, was smiling with the teeth showing, but that was there. And I was so charmed by that. And he's a flute player? Whoa, I got to check that out, So that helped me to get attracted to Krishna. Krishna. All right, so where were we? All right, we still have a few minutes. 29. Buddhir bedam dritesh chaiva gunatas trivadam shunu pochamanam asheshena Prakatvena Dhananjaya. I'm sorry, it's Pritatvena Dhananjaya. O winner of wealth, Arjuna, now please listen as I tell you in detail of the different kinds of understanding and determination, according to the three modes of material nature. Purport. Now, after explaining knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower in three different divisions according to the modes of material nature, the Lord is explaining the intelligence and determination of the worker in the same way. Okay, text 30. Pravritim cha navritim cha karya karye bhaya bhaye bandham moksham cha yaveti buddhi sa Pṛthā sattviki. Okay. O son of Pṛthā, that understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, is in the mode of goodness. Purport. Performing actions in terms of the directions of the scriptures is called pravritti, or executing actions that deserve to be performed. And actions which are not so directed are not to be performed. One who does not know the scriptural directions becomes entangled in the actions and reactions of work. Understanding which discriminates which discriminates by intelligence is situated in the mode of goodness. Now you remember that nice what should I call it? Triad: thinking, feeling, and willing. Thinking, feeling, willing. When you think about how life goes on, you realize that those three are working very much in concert, right? In order to do something, you have to have some thought. You have to say, oh, this is good. If I do this, and this will happen. There's some idea behind it, And then you think, and you have the feeling, so if I do it, it'll be good. It'll be beneficial to me or beneficial to someone I care for. And then you actually do it. You actually will to do it. You decide, I should go to here, do this, and that. So thinking, feeling, willing. So that thinking is a function of the intelligence. And because human beings have the superior intelligence, they can feel and will to do things that are not just to their immediate benefit. The animals mostly are on the preyas platform. What's immediately, I'm hungry, I walk, I see. I haven't seen it in a while, but you get to the corner here, and there's a little restaurant on the corner of Garnet and Cass on the right, and you find that the trash there is sometimes it's been emptied out, and so the birds come. You see some of the seagulls come, the crows, you see, and they're picking away, And when they sense that I'm there, they walk a little bit away, then they even get into the street. The cars are coming and they're afraid of me. So I say, Hare Krishna, and they fly off, So, but they're thinking, feeling, willing. It's rudimentary. Mostly it's programmed, inside. Like the super soul is telling them what they call instinct, right? It's flying. I mean, they don't think fly. I got to flap a little, more. No, it's just happening. So, but human beings, we can think ahead and say, okay, this may be good, now, but if I do that, I won't go to work, I won't make any money, and I won't be able to pay the rent. So rather than the immediate thing of just turning over in bed and sleeping in, I said I have to get to work on time. So that's a rudimentary shreyas and preyas. The shreyas is that okay, I'll be a dutiful worker. I'll get my paycheck. I'll be able to pay for my family like that. But of course, what is the ultimate shreyas? There's a niksheyasa, rather than just living an ordinary life. And the ultimate shreyas is, oh, okay, I'll actually get free of this, these difficulties of this material body. There'll be no more death, no more disease, no more old age. I'll regain my original platform of eternal bliss and knowledge. Where are you going to learn that from? Books of knowledge, you see. You're not going to learn that, in the ordinary library somewhere, So that's the intelligence. If you have the idea that that's actually a way of acting and thinking and living that can lead me out of this whole morass, of material life, then let me try that. And you think and you will, okay, I'm going to will, and you walk to the temple, and you find you're doing things that are also making you feel better, like that. So thinking, feeling, willing, and that's this mode of goodness here. They know what's to be done, what's not to be done for ultimate good, and they actually act according to that. All right, it's getting late, so time for one little poem. Any requests? I'm kind of running out of new stuff. All right, you haven't heard this one in a while. This is from verses like this. I came up with this phrase, Rupa rap. Yamalajana bandana mashata dandana mahigandana ganalasa badam. Pashapada padandana babasata kandana madisundana madavindakadam. Vadagopa vadujana vidijita pujana mudukujana namavena dadam smadadama vachakshadama kalabadakshana tanalakshana madidakshadam. I mean, even without knowing the meaning, isn't that like it? So what it means, you broke the two, of course it's to Krishna. You broke the two Himalayan trees, you loved to delight your pure devotees. You crushed the pride of the Kali snake with your prancing dance in the Yamuna lake. You're the coward's prince and the life and soul. To serve you with love is their only goal. In the caves you meet the gopis fair and enjoy sweet loving pastimes there. You're dashing, clever, and most debonair. Your lotus hands give blessings rare. To worship you again and again is the way of the wives of the cowherd men. When the gopis hear that flute you hold, their passion grows 1,000-fold. Of amorous joking, you're the king. Indeed, you're skilled at everything. So that's our little poem for tonight. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we'll reconvene on Monday. Very good. Oh yeah, we'll be here for Monday night. Everybody will be here. Go Pranima.